Yeah, so should I start?
Hello, David. Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Okay. So please let me know if you see my screen.
Now we do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna... You still see my screen?
Yes.
I'm having a bit of echo. Can we solve this? Because I hear myself.
For us, everything sounds great. We will try to solve it if it's possible on the technical side.
Okay. Well, I think we need to move on at least. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here speaking with you. It would be even more fun if we could hold this physically in Moldova, but instead of me being at your place, you get to see a little piece of my living room. So the next time I hope to be able to visit you. So as I was presented, my name is David Lööv. I work in the E-Krona pilot division at the Riksbank, and my background is an economist. And I also have a role of a sort of a technical person in the sense that I'm a product owner from the Riksbank perspective when we are implementing the technical solution that we're testing in the project. So my background is not technical, but I work with a lot of technical issues at the moment. So my background is of economics, but I'm in this project in all different kind of areas. So now you know a little bit of my background, and the agenda of this presentation is I'm going to give you a very short background on why the Riksbank is working with the Swedish CBDC called the EKrona. And then I will give you a little bit of information of the pilot project and how the tested technical solution works. And this will be very high level since we don't have that much time to really dig into the technical nitty-gritty stuff. And then I'm gonna continue and end with some short notes on the future work of the E-Krona pilot and the E-Krona project in general at the Riksbank. So due to the short time that we have, once again, I will not be able to go into all the details around all the aspects that we're looking at in E-Krona. But for those who are interested, because I guess there might be some persons that are interested in more technical aspects and some might be interested in like the more policy aspects and maybe the legal aspects. So for those who are interested in a specific area, you might feel that this is a little bit of high level, then of course you're able to contact me and we can, I can give you a little bit more information around the topics that we don't have the time to really dig into. But I'm gonna start by showing two pictures, very simple pictures of why Sweden is looking at the Swedish E-Krona, a digital central bank currency. And at the left here, you have a very simple graph showing the percentage of people paying for their most recent purchase in cash. And as you can see, this has decreased rapidly during the recent years here in Sweden. And there are a lot of reasons for that. We have really well-developed digital payment systems today in Sweden. One very popular app called Swish makes it possible for person to person to pay instantly with instant settlements. So you can basically swish or transfer digital money just as you give a person a physical banknote. So I would say this is a very big reason for why cash has decreased so much in Swedish society. And on the right hand side, you see this is a little bit of Swedish here, so please feel free to learn. But what it says here on the signs here is that we are a cash-free shop, which means that shops and coffee houses, etc. in Sweden, they don't even accept cash anymore. So this is another reason, because since we are so well developed when it comes to digital payment system, all the shops and people around Sweden, they don't want to use cash anymore. So what we're seeing here is a very quick development where cash is being more and more marginalized in Sweden. And we as a central bank, we see this as a potential problem, because if cash totally disappears, the Riksbank will lose its direct role on the payment market. And by direct role, I mean the direct role we have today at the end user hand. So if cash totally disappears, people don't have the possibility to hold central bank money anymore. And we see this as a big problem, or see this at least as a potential problem, because one of the most important jobs that we have here in the Riksbank is to assure that we have a safe and efficient payment system that is available for all persons in Sweden. And if cash totally disappears, we are basically out of the playing field when it comes to payments for the end user, direct use of central bank money for the end users. And we can go into lots of policy arguments as well why this is of importance, but I will not go into that in detail. But the most basic reason for the Riksbank looking at this is that we feel that we need to be able to offer central bank money for the persons in Sweden, even though we begin to start living in a total digital era. So this is the main background of the project. And the E-Krona pilot project, I'm going to give you a little bit of presentation regarding that, of course. And what we're running here at the Riksbank is a pilot project where we're testing a technical solution. And the reason why we're doing this is for the learning. We want to understand more, okay, how could this work if we were to launch a issuable E-Krona for the Swedish citizens or the persons in Sweden. It could be tourists as well, I must add that. So the object of the project is to increase the knowledge base so that when the day comes, if Sweden decides, okay, we want to have a CBDC available in Sweden, we must know how this should be published and sorted out. So what we did is that we run a technology neutral procurement of technical supply in 2019. And when I say technology neutral, I mean that we did not say that we want to test this specific technique of how a CBDC could work, but we rather did send out a use case and a lot of requirements what a Swedish CBDC should be able to handle when it comes to instant settlements, when it comes to paying peer-to-peer, when it comes to security, etc. And then we let the vendors on the market to present their solution of how they saw that this could be lived up to. And then we decided that we wanted to test this specific solution to learn more. But this does not mean that we have chosen a specific technical solution for a issuable Swedish CBDC, because this is only for pilot reasons. So I think that's very important to address so that everyone understands that the things we're testing now, you shouldn't take that as, okay, this is the Swedish way of designing a CBDC. This is just for learning process. And then we're gonna take all the knowledge and of course, use that to set up the new requirements that we want to have for the so-called issuable E-Krona that will be launched for the public if the day comes that it has been decided that the E-Krona should be launched. And we started the pilot project in February 2020, and we have extended the pilot one more year. So we're basically in phase 2 now, which ends in February 2022. And we have the possibility to extend the pilot a couple of years further as well if we want to see and test some other, to really investigate the solution even more. So once again, there's no decision on whether to issue an E-Krona or on how the E-Krona would be designed and which technology that would be used if we were to issue an E-Krona. So that's very important to understand for everyone here. So I'm going to present you the technical solution that we're working with in this E-Krona pilot project, at least. And what you see here in the picture are 2 snapshots of how the user interface looks at the mobile app that we have decided or designed when we're testing the functionality in the pilot. So it's only built for internal testing, but this is nevertheless how it looks when we are playing with this mobile app in the technical solution that we're working with in the pilot. Yeah, and I'm going to give you a quick description of the technical solution that we're testing, and this might be a little bit technical. So if you have any further questions, you're welcome to email me or maybe raise them in this meeting, and I can address them if we have the time. But the technical solution that we're testing and the distribution model of the E-Krona solution is based on a private DLT network called Corda from the company R3. And the gray circle here represents the so-called E-Krona network, which is built on the Corda platform. And we have built it in a closed test environment at this pilot stage. So this is nothing that's out in the society, so to speak. We are just testing here, like a proof of concept. And it's once again, it's a DLT network, but it's a private DLT network, and I think that's very important also to make a distinguish between the public DLT networks that are around in the world today. But this is a private one, which means that only Riksbank approved participants is allowed to become participants in this network with the possibility to distribute e-kroners. And I will go into a little bit more what I mean by distributing. And the e-krona in this solution are token based, and it's really hard to really describe what we mean by token based, because it could mean quite a lot, and you could have different definitions of it. But as we see it, it's a uniquely identifiable digital object that can only be issued by the Riksbank. So each e-krona in the form of token is uniquely identifiable, and it has a trace back to the Riksbank as the sole issuer of the e-krona. And this is very important, because this is how the token is proven that, okay, this is real e-kroners. And the distribution model that we're playing with here in this pilot has the purpose to mimic how the cash distribution is done today. So the idea of this distribution model is that the Riksbank is the sole issuer and creator of the e-kroner, but the distribution to the end users are actually done by participants on the market, which could be banks or other payment service providers. So in this picture that you see here, the light blue circles are the banks, or as we call it, participants, because we don't want to say that it can only be banks. It might be also that it could be other types of payment service providers or fintech companies or whatever. So we're using the term participants here, participants in the network, as we are working in the pilot. So these participants in the network, they have the possibility to set up their own node, their own Corda node in this Corda platform, which makes them able to communicate with other banks or payment service providers that are in this network that run their own node. So in this picture here, we have three nodes, three participants nodes. And these participants, they have the possibility as well to communicate with the Riksbank node, which is the dark blue circle here. And that is the only part of the network that can actually create e-kroners. So they basically demand e-kroners from the Riksbank, which then they later on can distribute to their end users, which are their customers. So by using this type of distribution model, the Riksbank distances itself from end user relations, because we don't see ourselves as getting involved maybe with all the end user relations, etc., and designing all the payments projects that could be done on the e-krona, but rather we are the ones that creates the e-krona and issue them to the participants in the network, which in their turn distribute it to the end users. So when a participant in this network, call it a bank or a PSP, wants to get a hand of e-kroners, they contact the Riksbank node here in the e-krona network and say, okay, hey, I'm simplifying this a bit, but I think you can understand that. But they're saying, okay, we want 100 e-kroners. So what happens then is that the Riksbank communicate with the RTGS system in in Sweden called Riks, which have the bank's account in the RTGS system. So what's happening now is that the RTGS system debits the participant's account in the RTGS system, and in turn of the debit, they get new fresh e-kroners issued by the Riksbank. And those e-kroners can later on then be distributed to their end users, which are their customers. And the end users in the system, they can have their own e-krona wallets, which is a type of digital wallet serviced by the participant they are connected to. So it's basically quite alike as an account, but instead of holding private account money at the bank, they hold E-Kronas issued by the Riksbank, which is also guaranteed by the Riksbank. So this is not a claim on the private actor. The private actor, in this case the bank, is just the institution that makes it possible for the end users to hold and do transactions with the E-Kronas. But it's not a claim on the private bank. This is very important because this is money issued by the central bank, and it should be a claim on the central bank, not a claim on the private bank in this case. So let's say that I'm an end user and I want to get a hold of E-Kronas. I make, let's say that we're using the mobile app here. I use the app to demand a withdrawal of E-Krona to my digital wallet. And what happens then is that my bank in the system debit my personal bank account. And instead of having money on my bank account, I instead get E-Kronas that I hold in my digital E-Krona wallet. So it's kind of like a digital version of an ATM, basically. When you go to an ATM and you request cash, what's happening there is that the bank debit your bank account and you get cash instead. And this is quite similar. When you demand a withdrawal to your E-Krona wallet, the bank debits your bank account and you get E-Kronas in your digital wallet instead. And those E-Kronas that you hold in your wallet, you can then use in this network by transferring to other persons, or maybe use them in a shop or something. So this is the basic idea of this distribution model. The Riksbank issues the E-Kronas to the banks or other payment service providers, and they in turn distribute it to the end users against debiting of bank money that the end users hold at their accounts. So it's very similar to how cash is distributed, but in a digital way. And I should also say that we're in this pilot, we're assuming that participants are also members of the RTGS system or participants in the RTGS system, RIX. We're not saying that this must be the case if in an issuable E-Krona, because it's a quite narrow and limited group that are participants in the RTGS system in Sweden. But so this is something that we really need to investigate if we want to allow a broader group of distributors of E-Krona than just the usual banks, etc. We might need to think about, okay, how could this work? How can the money be transferred, or the E-Krona be transferred to the different types of payment service providers, I don't know, fintech companies, etc., if they are not members in the RTGS system in RIX. But we need, of course, have control of how money is created and how it is distributed. But exactly who would have the possibility to distribute these E-Kronas to the end user, we haven't decided on that. And this is something that is very important, of course, to really investigate and further on to decide for the issuable E-Krona. But the basic idea is, once again, that the distribution to the end user goes through participants in the market and not the Riksbank itself. So I'm going to give you also a little slide on to tell you, okay, what we're working with besides of this sort of technical nitty-gritty stuff that I showed you on the previous page. Yeah, as I said, we have the pilot project and we have continued to develop that during this second phase. And what we're working with now is we're actually testing how this type of participant integration can work. Since during the first phase, we actually just made a proof of concept of setting everything up, and we played with like simulations of banks, etc., in this network. But what we have done now during the second phase is that we have two participants of the market. One is a real bank in Sweden, and another one is a big technical supplier to banks in Sweden. The bank is called Handelsbanken in Sweden, and the technical supplier is a big consultant company called TietoEVRY. So what we're doing now is basically that we are integrating their internal systems with this E-Krona network so that they run their own nodes in the network with the possibility to set up wallets for the end users and do this exchange that I talked about in the previous slide, how I as an end user can exchange money that I have at my private bank account against E-Kronas that I can use in the E-Krona network. So that's something that we have worked with, and we have come quite far with this participant integration, just to test how can this work in reality, so to speak. And what we're also working a lot with now during the second phase is the offline functionality, because this technical solution that we're working with, the token-based solution, has the possibility that you can actually store the e-kronas. Oh, now I don't have my cell phone on me, but you have the possibility to store a local version of the e-kronas that you hold, to store them locally in your mobile phone, which gives you the possibility of some offline functionality, so that I can transfer e-kronas to the receiver without having network access. So that might give some offline functionality, but all the transaction that is done in this E-krona network must be fully settled online on the network. So we're not saying that you reach full offline functionality, but you might reach some sort of delayed online functionality, basically, that you can make transaction, but they must be settled later on in the network. So it's not as offline as cash, but you might get some sort of offline functionality that, of course, needs to be regulated, because it's assorted to risks, etc., when the final settlement is done later on. But that's something that we're looking at. And we're also, of course, very interested in the performance testing. This kind of technical DLT networks that we're testing now is quite new, and it haven't really been tested for retail purposes in the magnitude that a retail CBDC must be. So for it to be able to fulfill the requirements, we are doing a lot of performance testing on how many transactions per second, etc., this kind of network can proceed and process. Of course, a very important question when it comes to a retail CBDC. And we're also testing out the POS integration to make sure that this E-krona payments can be used against terminal in shops, etc., where you use cards today. And right now, we're looking at the possible extension with 1 more year of the pilot project. It hasn't been decided, but we're discussing it if there's something else that we want to take a look at with this technical solution. And besides of the technical work, we're also, of course, paying a lot of attention to investigation and communication. And a very important question, I would say the most important questions regarding the E-krona, is to decide on the policy questions and prioritize the main objective of the E-krona. Because if the main objective is to design a more resilient system, the product might look a little different than if you want to design an E-krona that should spur innovation and competition. And a lot of arguments is thrown up in the air. Okay, the E-krona should be able to handle this, and the E-krona should be able to handle that, etc. But we need to prioritize and really decide on, okay, this is the main reasons, and then you can see how you can combine the different arguments. But for the final version or the issuable E-krona, we must really know, okay, this is why we are launching the E-krona, and this is the main things that you must live up to. And then there's a lot of legal investigation. How would this kind of asset be fitted on the market? It should not be a claim on the private actor. It should be something that's guaranteed by the Riksbank, etc. So there are a lot of legal things also around this. And what we're also doing, I must also address, is that we're also looking at other technical solutions. So we're working with this solution that I presented with you on the pilot project. But what we're also focusing on, and we're going to focus even more on, is, okay, how is the solution that we're working with compared to other types of solutions? Because there are a lot of solutions out there, and depending on what we want to solve with the E-krona, one solution might fit better than the other. So this is something that we really need to work with as well. And also communication. Since we're working with a model where actors on the market are the ones that are actually distributing the E-kronas to the end users, we must, of course, understand how they feel about the E-krona, what kind of business models that they see in this kind of digital E-krona setup, and understand how an E-krona could be designed to get it really adopted by the market. So this is a very important part, and this is something that we don't do by ourselves, but we need to start communicating and talking with actors on the market to understand how they feel about this. And also a very important part is we're starting working on the preparation for a possible new procurement for the final version, or not the final version, but the issuable E-krona, I should say. So based on everything that we have learned so far, we must start looking at, okay, how can we use this knowledge to actually set down our feet and put it down to the table that this is the E-krona we want to issue, and this is how it should be designed, and this is how the procurement should be handled for it to reach the goal, so to speak. what requirements should it fulfill, use the learnings that we got from the pilot. And also a very important part is, okay, how can we set up a procurement that is secure enough, etc., and to make sure that the technical solution that we have chosen will actually fulfill all the requirements that we have based on the learnings that we have teach ourselves during this pilot project so far. So that was quite fast because I know that I don't have a lot of time. But yeah, as a final word, I would like to thank you for having me once again. And for those who are interested, you can just see the link here for further reading and at the Riksbank webpage, where we have a lot of reports concerning policy, all the policy questions regarding the E-Krona, and also, of course, the technical aspects that I touched briefly on during this presentation here. And you can read more about how the solution works, all the issues around it, the questions that we see that must be addressed, etc., and what we need to learn more about this new type of technique that we're testing. So I think I've talked 25 minutes now, and from what I've understood, I only got 20. So I think I need to stop there, and you're free to give me some questions if you like, or if you have the time.